Rolling.
Welcome back to the podcast, recorded from sunny the van.
Sunny the van.
In a not very sunny France.
No, very rainy France today.
Rainy France, cold France. Yeah, we ain't in Spain anymore, are we?
No, God no.
No, it's been a cold one.
Yeah, well, to be fair, the last day in Spain was cold. Like when we got past Barcelona, we went, like in that day we drove 2 hours and we went from 25 degrees to 16 degrees.
Yeah.
And then we drove a couple of hours more to get into France and he went to 9 degrees.
Yeah, yeah. It's been 6 today.
Yeah.
That's cold. That's really
It is
cold. That's cold even for Sweden. Cold, that is, at the moment.
At the moment. It is colder, obviously, in Sweden right now as well, because everybody seems to have this cold. But it's not normally like this, is it?
No.
Last year, this time, you and the kids were like swimming and stuff.
Yeah. In lakes, outside, yeah.
When I was in the hospital those 2 weeks, you had all weather, I think. Like the first day was cold. And then I got like pictures of the kids being sat in like paddling pools and stuff and eating ice cream in just underwear, and it was so hot. And then when I got back out from the hospital, it was freezing again.
Yeah. April in Sweden is something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
My birthday's in the middle of April almost. And it's quite a good like metric because I've been sunburnt on my birthday in Sweden, and we've also had 30 centimetres of snow on my birthday in Sweden. It's just Sweden in April, honestly.
Yeah.
It can never make its mind up, can it?
No.
But that's what they say in Sweden, isn't it? With the spring. The spring always comes, what is it, the third time around or whatever it is?
I think it's third time, yeah.
Yeah. The third spring is the actual spring.
The actual spring, yeah. That's when you can start trusting it. But this year it doesn't seem like that's the case either, to be honest.
No. 4 or 5 springs maybe this year. Or 4 or 5 winters, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've been doing a lot of driving. We've been on the road for sort of 2, 3, up to 4 hours a day. Not quite 4 hours this time. But we've been driving consistently every day, haven't we?
Yeah, it's definitely starting to get to me now. Because we were talking about this the other day. When you drive in this kind of pace, then you get really tired because even if you only drive 2 hours a day, when you got kids, it's like you start driving at 10. And then you need to do some shopping on the way. And then you need to stop for lunch. And then all of a sudden, those 2 hours becomes like a full day of driving. And then you get to where you're going to stay at 3, maybe 4. Then you get 1 hour and then it's dinner time. And then it's everything that comes with dinner time when you got kids.
It's non-stop.
It's just non-stop. Even though you're not actually driving that much, you get so tired. And some days I just think like, should we just drive all the time instead and get this over with, because it drags you out. Like only being able to drive 2 hours a day makes you exhausted, but then you have to do that for like 2-3 weeks. And everybody else that we spent time with in Tenerife, they're like home since a week back.
It took them not even a week to get back from like the south of Spain up to Sweden.
Yeah, exactly.
No problem at all.
And they're as exhausted as us, just that we've been doing it for 3 weeks and they're doing it in 1 week.
Yeah. That is the epitome of travelling in this way with kids, isn't it? It is when you make those comparisons with people who don't have kids.
Yeah.
They can drive. You can drive all day, especially if both of you drive. If you're 2 people, for example, if we were doing this without kids, you and me could drive for 8 or 10 hours a day, and we would be probably as tired as we are now.
Yeah.
10 hours of driving a day is not that much.
No,
I can drive 5 hours in a day without it really being, even that tiring, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not that many hours of driving. It's probably 30 hours of driving from the south of Spain to Sweden.
Yeah.
30 hours. You could do it feasibly. You could do it in 3 days if you really wanted to. We could do it comfortably in 5 or 6 days if it was without kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, we only drive 2.5 hours a day.
And that's almost pushing it.
Some days it is. Some days it's really good. The last couple of days, the kids have been really good while we've been driving.
Yeah, they've been amazing. And normally they are amazing when we drive. Like even, I'm just thinking when we went to England, but like in the beginning of this journey this year, we went to England and it took us 4 days basically to get to England.
And that's really good going.
It is, and we drove so many hours a day, and but the kids were so excited to go and see everybody in England, so it was not a problem at all. But then we get the aftermath of it, and that's when it's really hard.
Yeah. Like the whole thing when we're driving with a destination, let's say, you know, as opposed to traveling, like for example in Tenerife, we're always dictated by the kids, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's why we were able to get to England in 4 days from Sweden, and it's why it maybe takes us a little bit longer, you know, sometimes, is that we're dictated by the kids. You make sure that while they're having a good time, you can get the driving done.
Yeah.
As soon as they're finding it a bit more challenging or whatever, then we sort of put the brakes on and we make sure that everybody has a nice time instead.
Exactly. And some days, like we said now, the last couple of days, that limit is after 2.5, 3 hours. And some days that limit is after 35 seconds.
Some days it's before you've even turned on the engine, to be honest. You just know it. You know it. When you're getting the seats prepared, when you're putting the kids' seats in, you're like, this is going to be a challenging day.
Yeah.
But you never know, because sometimes you have times like that and then it turns it around and the kids are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
To be honest, we ask so much of them. Like when you think about a normal kid's upbringing, they have it fantastic in a lot of ways. But we do also ask quite a lot of them, you know. There's not many situations where a kid is asked to be in a passenger seat of a moving vehicle 2.5 hours a day for several weeks.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's obviously so many aspects that you have to look at, because the benefits that they get from doing that, they've had a fantastic few months, and so have we, taking in new experiences and having it way more relaxed than any other 4 and 2-year-old, really.
Yeah. They're so used to this life now as well. Like,
Yeah.
you can see it, because we completely changing subject now, but we saw it the other week when it was something that smelled, like it was a smell outside, and Charlie was like, it smells like the grey water is leaking. Like, you're 4 years old, you should not know this. Like, how do you know what it smells when grey water is leaking?
Yeah.
How do you know this?
Yeah.
Can you put this into context?
It's so funny. Like, how many 4-year-olds know what grey water is?
Yeah.
I didn't know what grey water was until I was 28.
The same earlier, I was listening when he was playing with his cars, and then he turned to me and he was like, oh, this car is gone from Germany and now it's in France. I was like, how many 4-year-olds knows that after Germany you end up in France?
Yeah, geographically, France and Germany are next to each other.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? The amount of things that they're going to learn. Just go back a sec. For anybody who doesn't know what grey water is, it's essentially the dishwater that collects in a tank. Like when you're in a van or a motorhome or whatever, there's a tank for, dishwater, for dirty water that's not like toilet water sort of thing.
Everything that goes into the sink goes
down the
into a
drain.
tank.
Yeah.
A collective word is grey water.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what that was until we started with the whole van thing.
No.
So. But a frequent game of Charlie and Bella's when we got back from the big travel in the summer last year, they played camping.
Yeah.
They played campervans. And the game was, they had their toy cars out and they were travelling from Sweden and they were staying in Belgium and then they were getting the ferry over to the UK, and that was the whole game for weeks after we got back from the trip.
Yeah, they play like that a lot. They also understand a lot more than I thought that they would, which country we're in, and that you speak different languages. And when we say, like, in this country, you say thank you in this way, they go, okay, and then they start saying that, and they, they're with us, they're on the map, they completely know what we're doing, and I didn't think it would be like that.
No, I didn't either. And the fact that you can ask both Charlie and Bella, by the way, who's 2 years old, you can ask her how to say thank you in Spanish, and she will say gracias.
And thank you in French.
Thank you in
French.
French. Yeah, in French, that language, that one.
She's better than me.
Yeah, French, Spanish, German to an extent. They'll say, the odd word here and there that they've picked up. I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we get to experience this together, because it's easy to think that when you travel with kids, it's for us.
Yeah.
And that it's our experience and that they will just tag along and they don't really care where we are. And in one way they don't. But I also have to say, like, they've loved being in Spain. Every single day now since we got away from, like, the beach life, Bella is like, when can I get my bucket and spade and go and dig in on the beach again? When can we go to the beach? And then we parked next to like a little lake, and she was like, can you go swim in there? It's like, no, it's 9 degrees outside.
You can, but it's 3 degrees in the water.
She was like, oh.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that like they obviously pick up so much, but there's certain things that you can't explain. Like there's certain things that just like logically make no sense to a kid. Like you can't explain to a kid that the further north you travel, the colder it's going to get. That the reason that it's been warm is because we've been so much further south, and you know, as we travel back home, it's going to get colder and colder. It's just that like we were in a warm place and now it's cold. What's going on?
Yeah, and also for a 2-year-old, like it's strange for us as well. Like 2 days ago, we could be on the beach. It was nice and warm, and we were in a park on Miami Beach.
Yeah, well, even more like extreme than that. A week ago, it was 30 degrees. We had a freak, really, really hot
It's
day.
like Kalima, wasn't it?
Was it? No, when we were just south of Barcelona, we had one day where it hit 30 on our thermometer, which is pretty much unheard of, I think, in April, in the north of Spain at least. Or I don't know. I might have just made that up. But it was 30 degrees, and it shocked me at least in April. It was 30 degrees on the northeast of Spain, and that was a week ago.
Yeah.
And now it's a shock to everybody's system. You're right. It's weird for us as well.
Yeah. It's not like, I want to say normal, but you know, like you get on an airplane and you realize how much you travel. Like here, we sit for 2 hours in a car, and then all of a sudden you can't be on the beach anymore. That's so big for a 2-year-old to understand. It's such a big difference.
It really is, yeah. And we've talked about this before, that it really makes you realize when you're doing traveling like this how small the world is, how little you can travel and be somewhere completely different, as in climate-wise. You know, when you get on a plane, you know that you leave your country, you get on a plane for 3 hours, and you're somewhere completely different. You've got no context of how far that actually is. But when you drive in, something that you do all the time, you really do have that context. And you're like, hang on, we've only been driving for a few days, and now all of a sudden we've gone from somewhere really warm to somewhere really cold. And the biggest example of that was when we were doing it the other way, when we were leaving in January, that we'd been racing the bad weather south in Sweden, and it had been minus 16 degrees. And all of a sudden we drove for a couple of days and it wasn't minus degrees anymore. It was a lot warmer. And then obviously we went over to the UK, but if we'd have carried on southwards, we could have driven for a couple of days more and been in Spain.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy to me, that you can drive that sort of short distance and be somewhere in a completely different climate.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting because it's not something that I'd ever like thought about before we've been driving these sort of long distances.
No.
The world just suddenly feels so small.
Yeah, the other day when we recorded the last episode, we were sat in Gibraltar, which means that we could see Africa.
Yeah.
We could see Africa.
Yeah.
We basically drove so we could touch Africa.
Yeah, yeah, literally, like
Could have swum there.
not even a couple of weeks ago. It was insane that it's that it's like that, to be honest. And like, I know this is a little bit different with Tenerife, with the Canary Islands, because you have to get a ferry to get there, and that sort of like takes away that aspect of it. But we were geographically level with the Sahara Desert a few weeks ago, which is also nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's even more crazy that when we were in Gibraltar, we could see. Yeah, you could see Africa.
Yeah, it's strange.
And now in a couple of days' time, well, tomorrow we're going to be in Germany, and then not long after that we're going to be in Sweden. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just that all of a sudden, like after doing this, the world feels extremely small.
Yeah, it does. It really does. But now we've been rambling a lot about all kinds of things, and I thought maybe we should announce what we were actually going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So today we thought that maybe we should chat a little bit about how it is to actually travel with kids. We already touched the subject a little bit, but we thought we're going to go deep because it's a lot of people who get very, very surprised when we do this with kids. A lot of people who get really impressed that you can actually do this with kids. And for us, it doesn't feel like a big thing. It was never like, oh, can we do this with kids or not? This was more of a thing, can we do it in general or not? So then we thought, if it's this surprising, then maybe it's something that's worth talking about and hopefully inspire some more people that you can actually do stuff even though you got kids.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started doing stuff publicly, let's say, when we first started the YouTube channel, our mantra was that we wanted to show that you could do everything you could do without kids, you could do with kids.
Yeah.
That was sort of the whole point, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That back then it was sleeping in a tent, that you could take what was essentially a small baby. What was Charlie?
About 8 months maybe.
Yeah, when we first went camping in a tent, we drove like to Irland, which is like 5 hours.
Yeah.
And slept in a tent. And we wanted to show people that it's not as big as you think it is. Like it's not that big of a thing.
No, I remember it so clearly because the first time we went camping with Charlie, that was spontaneous. Because it was my parents and my brother, I think, who told us that they were going to go windsurfing on Öland. And it was summer holiday and everybody was off and whatever. And we were like, oh, you're going to go and do that fun thing. But we don't got a van. So at like 6 o'clock in the evening, just before Charlie's bedtime, we were like, we're going to go camping tomorrow. So I prepped Charlie for bed and you went out to buy everything that you need when you go camping because we didn't own a tent. No. You went to buy a tent, you went to buy like a gas stove, you went to buy every single thing you can imagine that you need for camping. And then you went food shopping and we prepped some food, and then at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day we jumped into the car and we drove for 5 hours down to Ireland.
Yeah.
And I remember saying this at work when I came back from a holiday. And I was like, oh, no, we decided on the Friday night and on Saturday morning we left. And everybody was like, what? I wouldn't even do that without kids. How can you manage to do that with a 8-month-old or whatever Charlie was? And for us, it wasn't even a thing. No. It was never like, oh, we can't do this because of Charlie. It was only like, all right, how are we going to do this? And then it was like, all right, we're going to rush to get this done. And we did.
Yeah. I think it goes back, doesn't it? It's a mindset thing, and it goes back to how you and me were before we had kids. We were quite spontaneous, and we were happy to just jump in a car and go and do stuff. And not everything needed weeks of planning like it does for a lot of people. And we really made a point of carrying that over, I think, when we had kids. And I think there's this whole like belief that when you have kids or when you have your first kid, that life sort of stops in some way. That the way that you live has to be put on pause for a little while.
Yeah, it's one of these things. You hear people say it all the time. We needed to go travel here before we have kids. We needed to get this done before we have kids. It's the saying. It's everywhere. Like, why do you have to do this before you have kids? Yeah. It's not like life ends.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's a mindset thing. And I think it's something that I would really try to push on people because I think it does go against the norm. The norm is that you have to change the way that you live. And yeah, okay, certain things have to change slightly, but I don't think there's any reason that you should like stop doing things and that you should, there's not really ever any reason to say like, we can't do this because we've got kids.
No.
It's just that you have to adapt a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, you do. You have to adapt and you have to maybe change a little bit how you do it. Yeah. You can still like, you can go camping without kids. But maybe, you know, if you went camping before kids, then maybe you went for a hike and then you put your tent up somewhere far up on a mountain or whatever. I still believe that you can do that with kids. Just put them in a harness on your back and you're fine. But maybe you don't want to do that the first time you go camping with a kid. So maybe you need to change a little bit how you're doing it, but you can still do it. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to like understate it that obviously things have got to change and obviously you have to do things in a different way than you did before. Prime example, look at the state of the garage in our van. It is packed full to the top with essentially crap, but crap that we need. You need so much stuff when you're travelling in the way that we do with kids that you wouldn't otherwise. There's people that we've sort of met and that we've been travelling with for a little bit who have a scary little amount with them. Yeah. There's people that we know that when you look in their garage, as in which is like the storage area under the bed in most vans and the same in ours, it's essentially empty. It's got your jump leads in case and it's got your hose for your water and blah, 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 some tools and whatever, but essentially it's empty. Ours, I cannot understate how full ours is. It is packed to the top. I mean, yeah, okay, we've got a box of medicine that maybe we wouldn't otherwise have needed without
We wouldn't have needed as big of a box.
without the
Cancer.
stuff. And we've got a few bits like that whatever.
Got a massive box for the stoma.
Yeah, all your stoma bags and everything, of course. So, you know, it's not all that. But essentially, the rest of it is stuff that you need for travelling with kids. You need so many more clothes. You need so much more, like, just bits and bobs.
It's entertainment
Yeah.
a lot. Or at least that was our feeling, especially because we don't just go and travel for 4 weeks on our holiday. Like, we've done this as a full-time thing. And for me, I didn't feel like I can tell my 4-year-old that, oh, you used to have a bicycle, you used to have a skateboard, you used to have a scooter, you used to have all of this, and now you can't have anything. Like, obviously, you don't got all of that with us. We got a bicycle for him.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can't take away every single thing. You have to prioritize. And for most people, you prioritize and you're like, we don't need a bicycle. We don't need this. We don't need that. But for a kid, you can't prioritize away everything. Like you and me, we don't got anything with us like that. But the kids got a bike each. And that takes up a lot of space.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a skateboard. But yeah, exactly. That's when it starts becoming unfair. Like how you worded it before, that the kids are a part of it. It's not just us that are travelling and have the kids along with us. That's when I would start feeling like it was like that. If we were like, yeah, but your bike takes up way too much space and it's too heavy, so we can't have it with us.
Yeah, exactly. Then the kids would be miserable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard though, isn't it? Because kids are so like, kids adapt so much to what they have and haven't got. And it's very rare that I feel like the kids miss stuff. So I think if the kids didn't have the bikes, for example, they would adapt to not having bikes. But I myself would feel like it was unfair that they didn't have them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they would adapt, but also feel like they would have been very, very upset before we were leaving. And then I would have felt bad because we've already taken away so much else from them.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you can't take everything like that away and then feel not guilty about it.
And I mean, there's very little that we've had to, that I feel like we've had to leave behind for the kids. They have so many toys. Like they have boxes of toys and a full box of like outdoor toys, all sorts of stuff. So I don't look around at what they've got with us and feel guilty in any way.
Not at all. I feel the other way. We need to cut down a bit before we go next time. But I think we also needed this time because it's like a cut down for all of us. Like we went from having a house to having a living room full of toys, and the kids' room was full of toys. We had 2 full rooms of toys, and now we got 1 van that's full of toys. So that was like a big cut down for them. So next time we also know like, okay, what did they not play with until we like show them that we had it. So maybe we don't say that we don't take it, but next time they might not even ask for it because they didn't realize they was here until we said like, don't forget to play with this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's things that we'll be cutting down for all of us, I think.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, we have so much crap in this van that we don't use.
It's easy to say that it's all kid stuff, but it's definitely not all kid
God,
stuff.
no, it's not. No, it's not. We bought I personally have bought far too much that I could have gotten rid of. And I said it previously, like we have a storage container at home and it's full to the top of stuff. I want to burn it all.
Yeah.
I don't want any of it. I want even less than we've got now.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive like perspective shift when you do something big like this, when you downsize in a way that we have, is you realise in what way stuff makes you miserable. Like there's so many things that you have that only fill you with, I don't know, anxiety and stress and like, yeah, I don't know, like downsizing in this way has done more for me than I was expecting, to be honest.
Yeah. You always just have to hope that you're doing the best choice somewhere for your kids. But I really think that this is so healthy for the kids in every aspect. You get a good view on like the nature, but you also teach them how to talk to new people, that you can speak different languages, that you have to like maybe have to change the way that you are a little bit when you get to a different country. Like in Sweden you behave in this way. You don't say hello to people on the street. But in England you do. And I think it's like healthy because we see all these different cultures, and it's so important to show the kids that and not just say like, oh, on the TV they do this. Do you know what I mean? Like I think we spoke about this in the first or the second episode of this podcast, is that a lot of people think they were insane for living this close to each other. And some days I think so too. But I also do think that we grow very, very close to each other. And I'm hoping that the kids are going to have such a strong bond, at least between them, that they're always going to have each other. Like, you know, when they turn 16 and they start doing stupid shit, even if they don't dare to call us, they dare to call each other because they're so close and not just like normal siblings kind of thing.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think the bond that we're all going to have as a family in that situation, for example, is going to make them feel like they can call us for any reason, I think.
I hope so.
You know, there's some families that have just a close bond, all of them. And I think living in a van, for better or worse, gives you that in a different way, or at least I think it will do for us. And it's not without its challenges. There are aspects to living in a house, you know, having a little bit of extra space. Maybe it's a little bit easier to take time for yourself. Maybe you've got an extra room that, you know, you can go to not be around everybody else when you want to. We don't have that.
No.
So there are aspects to it that are more challenging. I only want to give like the pros and the cons. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not all rainbows.
No, of course not.
But there are so many positive things, and
all the
family bond is one of them for sure.
All the positive things overcome the negative things.
100%.
But that doesn't mean that there's no negative things. Some days you feel like you're going crazy. Most days. No, not most days. Like, all you need is a minute to breathe. But there is no minute to breathe.
Sometimes you don't get that minute,
And a lot of the time, people might think like, oh, just go outside then. But you know, like, these kids, they love being outside. So if I say that I'm going outside, they're hanging there on my bum on my way out. Like, they're coming with me.
They've got their shoes on already.
Yeah.
I think it's also difficult in that way because we have a bit of a unique situation where the kids have been along for a cancer journey. They've been alongside you whilst you've been going through cancer treatment. And what that's done is it's made the kids so codependent on you in a different way than it ever would have been. Kids are always codependent on the guardians, on the mums and the dads and stuff. But they have such a bond with you where it started from them being scared, especially Charlie, of you not being around anymore, or of you not being around in the same way that you were previously. Like during chemo, Charlie was affected probably more than anybody else.
Yeah, probably.
And what it's created is this: they never want to leave you. Now that you're healthy and now that you are with us all the time, they don't ever want to leave you.
No.
And it's not a conscious thing. It's not him thinking that, oh, tomorrow Mama might not be around in the same way that she is today. It's a subconscious thing that has been built up from that, I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. They drive me insane.
From your perspective, like, I feel so sorry for you some days because it's like, even to the point, I mean, it is getting better in some ways, but even to the point where it's like, sometimes I can't help Bella on the toilet. Bella goes and uses the toilet and she's like, nah, I need Mama. Yeah, but I'm right here. I'm stood next to you. Nah. Mama.
You're not
Mama.
good. You're not good enough.
Yeah. She sits on the potty for 35 minutes when you go shopping on your own. But like I said, it's so hard to compare. There is no Google in this. There is no, like, we're in such a unique situation where they've been a part of this journey and it's developed into whatever it is now. It won't be like this forever. And in a few years' time,
I hope not.
in a few years' time, I'm telling you, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
You're going to look back on these times when they wouldn't give you a second of space. You're going to miss it.
I know I am. It's just some days it's really easy to appreciate and you think like, oh, I love this. And some days it's like, just give me 1 fucking second so I can take a breath before you suffocate me once again.
Yeah.
No, I love them to bits, but it is hard. So I don't want to sit here and say that everything is super easy just because we live in a van.
Mm.
But I do find a lot of things a lot easier because we live in a van.
Yeah.
And we're not here to preach about everybody should sell their house and go live in a van. But what we want to say is that it's not as hard as you might think it is.
Yeah, I think a thing that I would like to get across to people that seems to be like embedded into our generation of parents for some reason is that there's so many things that are so much simpler than what you think at first.
Yes.
And living in a van, for example, and the thing is, like, I don't want to come across like I'm trying to tell everybody that they should sell the house and move into a motorhome or whatever. That's not what I think. But what I hope is that if we can possibly inspire people, is that it translates into something that they want to do, something that maybe they've thought about doing, but maybe they can't because they've got kids, or they can't because in your situation they've got cancer, or they can't because of this or that. That you can.
Yeah.
There is no you can't. And we know of people that are like, oh, I could never do that, or I could never do what they're doing, even though it would be really fun, or even though I'd love to, or maybe one day if I win the lottery or whatever. And I want to break that. I'd love to normalise the opposite. Like my mindset with most things in life, with most hobbies that I've got, most interests that I've got, and most challenges that I've taken on is, has it been done before? Yes. Then I can fucking do it. Then it can be done again. Have people lived in a van before with kids? Yes. Why can't I do it then? These people they're not born with special skills that allow them to go and live in a van with kids. This is honestly my way of thinking about most things.
Yeah.
Can I learn to edit videos? That was something that I was always interested in. Yeah, people edit videos all the time. There's professional people that edit videos that were born not knowing how to edit videos.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
They were born with that hardware in.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean? There's so many things that you can apply it to. You have to be realistic, obviously. I'm not saying that a 55-year-old can go and get signed for Manchester United because he's got the belief. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do because they've been done before. Just learn how to do it. Especially with the amount of challenges that we've taken on. For example, like building a van, doing stuff like that. There's so much on YouTube. You don't even have to go on courses anymore for stuff like this.
No, God, no.
There's so many things.
You find anything on YouTube.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do, you can find on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. And that applies to so much. Google it. Honestly, like, you'll be surprised when you just get stuck into stuff how easy things are. I'm talking directly to you as well, because you've got this opposite mindset where you're like, oh, I could never do that. Oh, you need to do this because you've got the experience in it. You should take this one because you've done it before.
Yeah. Not because you've done it before. It's because you got a brain that just sucks up all the information. I got chemo brain that just goes when I try to learn something, and then it's like error comes up in my eyes, and then I get annoyed because I can't understand it, and the first thing you do when you look at it is you understand it, and then I get even more annoyed, and then I just go fuck this, and then I don't give a shit about it ever again.
Oh, I'm not having this chemo thing as an excuse because this has been going on forever.
Breastfeeding, pregnant. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm joking. Obviously, you and me have both got solid mindsets with stuff like that. It's just that I have a bit of an uncommon way of thinking about things.
You got a confidence that nobody could ever break. You're like, I'm the best at everything.
That's not true.
Before you even tried it, you're like, I am the fucking king of the world, and I am your servant, butler who just brings you tea.
Is that how you see our relationship? We've got some changes to make.
And then you chuck me a bone once in a while.
We've got some changes to make if that's how you think our relationship works. That's the whole thing. I don't ever think that I'm the best at anything. I don't ever think that I'm perfect at.
No, I'm joking.
But I have the confidence to think that I can do it. I'm not saying that I'm going to be the best in the world, and I'm not even saying that I can do it to a professional level, a lot of it. But you know what? F it. The thing is, I think that you just have to be realistic about how long things are going to take. Do you want to learn how to fly an aeroplane? You can do it because people learn how to fly airplanes all the time. I'm not saying that you can do it overnight, but if you're honest with yourself about how many hours you're going to have to put into learning this thing, you can do it. You can do it. That's my mindset, and I stick by it.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have, to be honest.
And I know we've gone way off topic there, but I hope that it can come back in sort of a roundabout way, and that the mindset that we've got is that you can do this with kids. Anything that you can do without kids, you can do it with kids as well.
And what I want to say with it as well is that you might feel scared to go out and do what you want. Like, no matter what it is, if it's starting a company or trying to be home with your kids or trying to do something similar to what we're doing or whatever, it's going to be scary. And a lot of people are going to have something to say about you. But as long as you're true to yourself about what is it that I want to do, then it don't really matter what the people say about you.
Yeah.
And this has taken me way too long to understand that it don't matter what other people got to say about me.
Yeah.
Because it's what I want to do and what we want to do that matters.
Yeah. A lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions when you take big steps, and that's just how it is. You have to be confident in knowing that what you're doing is the right thing
for your family
and for you specifically. Yeah. Because that's a good point. Because what we're doing right now doesn't fit the bill in a lot of families. A lot of families would crumble under what we're
It's not the right thing to do for a lot of families.
No.
And we've had a lot of opinions about not having our kids in preschool.
Yeah.
And I think that might be for a different episode. But I'm still going to throw that in here because that obviously also got something to do with traveling with kids. Because, well, I've heard some people say it, and that is that you should have your kids in preschool. It's not good for your kids to not be in preschool, and they don't learn what they should be learning and all of these stuff. And why we feel so confident that we're doing the right thing and don't doubt this is because we got the kids' nurse who full on supports what we're doing and has said that our kids develop at the same rate and in some aspects even more than kids that go to preschool. And that she don't see at all that our kids would benefit from going to preschool.
Yeah.
And there is also something that people make you doubt yourself as a parent, that is this the right thing, and can you do something like this, and can you go travel with kids, and can you take them out of preschool, and whatever it is that you might hear, because this is what the norm says. You should be putting your kids in preschool when they're 1 year old, and then they should be there and you should go to work, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And we're just completely opposite from that, and we feel very, very confident that we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And it's people like the nurse who have given us a lot of confidence to know that we are doing the right thing. And I think for a lot of families, not having kids in preschool would be maybe the wrong decision, because for a lot of families, if the kid's not in preschool, the kid's at home watching an iPad.
Yes.
And that is not what our kids do.
No.
That's the key difference, I think, that our kids benefit from not being in preschool because their life outside of what would be preschool is full of adventure and learning and exploration, like in a different way.
Exactly. A lot of the time we have to bribe our kids with iPads and not bribe our kids away from the iPads. We have to be like, please come and sit down for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, our kids, they're not very good at sitting down, are they?
No.
And sometimes it gets to mid-afternoon and they're exhausted and they refuse to come in and sit down. And sometimes, yeah, you're right, the iPad occasionally, or, you know, the Switch in Charlie's case at the moment, which is a little bit nicer than an iPad, I think, tends to be, come and sit and play for half an hour. Go on, you can...
So I can have a cup of coffee, please.
Can have a cup of tea and relax. And yeah, mostly for them, though. So you're not running yourself into the ground where you can't keep your eyes open at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see the difference on our kids as well, to be honest, because when we lived in a house, it wasn't loads of iPads, but it was a lot of TV. And not only that they were sat down watching TV, like sat down watching telly, it was just on in the background all the time, even when they were playing, and they got used to always having a TV.
Yeah.
And here, it's like, well, we use the telly in the morning, and that's it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, now in the evenings, if the kids get to choose, what do you want to do after dinner? They want to play a game, like Uno or like a board game or something, instead of watching TV or playing iPads.
Yeah, for sure. Shall we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
I feel like that was a lot of talking.
A lot of talking.
I suppose that's what a podcast is, though, isn't it?
It would be strange if we just sat here quiet. Hello, and welcome to listening to us breathe for 45 minutes.
Don't breathe into the microphone, please. Yeah, let's wrap it up there, though. Thanks very much for listening to this one. Make sure you give us a follow wherever you're listening to this on, whether it's on YouTube or any of the other podcast platforms. Give us a follow, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
We won't see you next week. We're on a podcast. We'll talk to you next. Do you say that?
You'll hear us next week.
You'll hear us next week. What? It sounds so weird. What do you say? I'm sticking to it. I'll stick with it. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.